Well, hey, Dave Melenda here, Positive Polarity Podcast. Hope things are going awesome for you this week. I have a simple question, but there's some depth to this. So on the surface, it's like a no-brainer. And the question is, are you interested in building a better business? And we as entrepreneurs around the world are like, absolutely. So I found a guy that asked that question, and then he wrote a book called Intentional Mastery. So I'm honored to be hanging out with William Buist. How are you today, sir?
I'm really well, thank you, Dave. It's been a fabulous day, and I'm looking forward to talking to your audience.
Awesome. Yes, you are all the way from England, so thank you for jumping on today. And so I love the title of your book. My book, Growing on Purpose. I love purpose. I love intentionality. So when I saw that, I'm like, this is an awesome book right here. So Intentional Mastery. So fill us in on what the premise of that book is about.
Sure. So I've been working with small business owners and senior leaders in larger organizations for 20 years or so, helping them to think about how they become the best they can be. And in doing that work, I've identified that there's a kind of chain of events that we go through as we develop our skills and experience. It all starts, I joined the insurance industry when my first job was in an insurance company, and I knew nothing about insurance. At that time, I went into the job and I had to learn all the technical phrases and the way it worked. And you're a bit of an explorer. And that's
Sure.
what I call that first stage. So you're out exploring, like being in the jungle, hacking your way through, not knowing, make lots of mistakes. And then you start to build some skills, and that you're not that skilled at it yet. You're just making mistakes, but you're building and honing a skill. And that's what I call the novice stage.
Okay.
So, it's still making lots of mistakes. And then as we work those out, we start to get good at what we do. We become what I call practitioners. And I think an awful lot of people are practitioners in a lot of things. I'm a practitioner level in all sorts of things. I know how to put a shelf on the wall, for example, but I'm not a carpenter. Right? So I don't have expertise in it,
Sure.
but I can get by. And that's the practitioner level. And as we build experience through our work, through working with other people who've got experience in what we do, we become an expert. And that expertise starts pervading what we do. And in fact, that's the point I think we also start passing it on to the people that are coming up behind us. We start helping the novices and the practitioners. And a lot of people kind of get to that level of expertise and think, I'm done. And I don't think they are. I think they can go, there's another step to take. And that's that step to mastery. And for me, that's about narrowing down the area in which you are really, really powerfully good, where you have talent, and honing in on that until you know it inside out and backwards. And you start to see connections with other parts of your life. You could draw insights from what you see. If you're a sports fan, you might draw insights into what you do from the sport that you see. We're watching the Rugby World Cup is on at the time we're recording this, and the finals coming up the weekend just to come. And I love rugby. I think it's a great game of strategy and of tactics and of strength, and there's a whole host of things go into it. But I look at the way those rugby players play their game and the way they practice and train and build their skill, and think that's what I've done in my business with the mentoring that I do with people. I'm constantly looking for new ways to explain what I want to pass on to others. And that's a level of mastery, that thinking, how can I do this even better and go even further than I've gone before? And to do that, you have to be intentional. You have to do it on purpose, literally on purpose. Your words, your wonderful words, growing on purpose. It's all about that, being focused and driving to be the very best you can be.
Sure. So I wrote down explorer, novice, practitioner, expert, and mastery. Those are the 5 steps then?
That's the five steps, yeah. And within mastery, you keep going. This isn't a destination, just An
It never
everlasting
reaches
thing.
the end, right?
I'll be honing what I do until the day I die.
So I have a question way off topic, but you enjoy photography, taking pictures. So where would you say in those five that you're currently at with your photography?
That's a good question, and it's probably not for me to judge. It's a bit for others to judge by looking at my photographs. But I've been taking photographs for a long time. About 20 years ago, I took what was nothing more than a snap when I was on holiday in Paris. And when I saw those days, it was on film and you had to wait for it to be developed, and you didn't know whether you'd take a good photograph immediately or not. And I got it back and looked at what I'd taken, and it really struck me as having captured something of that holiday in Paris that was really quite special. That was the point. I think then I was a practitioner. And that was the point when I thought, if I really focus on this and work on it, I could be really good. And I've been, working, thinking about where's my specialty. This is another example of that narrowing down for the mastery.
Sure.
There's lots of different types of photography, food photography, landscape, people, architecture. And I found that my niche, the place I felt most at home and the place I could take the best photographs was landscape. So I've focused on that. And earlier this year, I sought out one of the best landscape photographers in the UK and paid to spend a day with him to really get inside his head and understand how he took his pictures.
Sure.
And that completely lifted my game as well. And that's so, am I a master yet? I'm not sure. That's for others to judge, but I'm working hard at driving towards it.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, and I think it brings up a really interesting question, William, because entrepreneurs in general tend to be impatient, and so they explore, novice, practitioner, they want to blow right through that as quick as they possibly can, right? So how do you slow somebody down if they're listening and they want to jump right to mastery? How do you get them to kind of think those steps through before, jumping into that mastery piece?
That's a really good question. A very common thing I get asked is how do I do this quickly? What's the shortcut? And I'm afraid there really aren't any shortcuts, but you can, by being really focused, this comes back to intentionality again. You can do it quickly if you're determined to do it. So, you hear these things about, 10,000 hours and people who learn languages, by spending a lot of concentrated time on improving it. And that's one way to shorten the journey. But the other way, I think, to shorten the journey is to be really self-critical and really self-analytical. And maybe you need somebody externally to help you to see what you can't see, to really understand what your talent is. Where is your talent lying? Is it, look at entrepreneurs who've, let's take an example of somebody who starts a digital marketing agency, for example, helping people to do more online and all of those things. Maybe they do that because they enjoy it. They've got a passion for really designing good graphics, good video, getting the message out and honing the message so it's sharp and clear. And they do all of those things. But I would ask, which of those is the one bit that you really enjoy and are really good at, where the talent really lies?
Sure.
Right, now build your business around that bit and make that bit the one that you focus on. Because if we're trying to do, any of us that run a business, we know there's a whole host of things to do. There's marketing, there's sales, there's finance, there's all the bits of running the business. And when we start, if there's only us, we have to do it all. But we're not going to be good at it all. Right. As quickly as you can, focus on the bits where you have the talent and get other people involved, hire them, cajole them, borrow them, beg, steal, doesn't matter. Find a way to get those people for where their mastery is driving to help you build your business. That'll make a better business.
That's awesome. And I think that's great advice for anybody listening, is find what you're good at and do it, and then let other people do what you're not good at. I mean, I know for me early on, in my last business that I started and then sold, accounting was never been my strength, never will be my strength. Right. So when you first start out, and like you said, William, and it's just you have to do all those. But that was like the first hat I loved to get rid of, and it was like I couldn't wait to get rid of that hat. And then, then once you get rid of one, it just seems easier and easier to get rid of. So surround yourself with those people. I also like what you said about that external coach, so to speak. I'm sure that people listening can identify with a certain athlete, whoever their favorite athlete is. All these professional athletes have coaches to help them because we all have blind spots. So, we may think that we're an expert, we may think that we're in the mastery level, but somebody might come alongside and say, yeah, when it comes to maybe customer experience, right? What's your customer's experience like? You may still be a novice to that, but you think that you're an expert. Do you see a lot of people that you run into, William, that have that blind spot where they may think they're farther along than they actually are?
Yeah, I do, and I think we all have. I have blind spots, and still, I've been in business for 40 years now, and it's still things that sometimes will crop up that are a bit unusual, and I give it my best shot, as they say, and other people look at it and go, well, that wasn't quite perfect, was it? And that's okay, because we are always learning, and I work with, I'm a business mentor. I work with business owners to help them see themselves as others see them. But I have a mentor and a coach myself too. And we work really well together. And sometimes what they have to say and what they point out is a little bit painful to hear, because as you say, you think, yeah, I'm quite good at this.
Yeah.
And then you get a different viewpoint, and it's okay. Maybe I'm not quite as good yet as I thought I was. So I need to to practice a bit more. And that's okay. It is, because that's how we develop and how we grow and how we learn.
Right. Well, and that's the self-awareness piece, that if we're not self-aware and we're just kind of oblivious and we have blinders on and we think that everything is, great and don't change a thing. I don't know what companies in England were like that, but here in the US, you have Kmart and, Blockbuster and Radio Shack. You have these large companies that felt things were never going to go wrong, and they're bankrupt and gone today, because of those blind spots and because of the fact that they refuse probably even to listen to the customer. So where does the customer fit into this as their feedback goes? I mean, is that part of the intentional mastery, that to make sure you're including your customer?
Oh, I think the more in the whole chain of people from that are developing and working in your business through to the customer as the end of that chain, I think you need to be talking to them all and thinking about, how do I get my customer to really relish working with us, to be an advocate, to be out talking about us, our brand, what we're doing for them, so that more business flows to us. An example in my business, one of my clients, unannounced, put a post on LinkedIn about working with me. They didn't say who they'd worked with. They just said, I've been working with a business mentor, and it's changed my business in these ways, and it's made a difference in those ways. And within about 2 days, I'd had 5 referrals from them, because they'd all come to her. Who is this person that you're working with? Put me in touch with them. So that, that says I've got whatever I've delivered for that customer has worked really well. They're very pleased with it. So, of course, I went back to her and dug under the skin of what exactly was it that prompted you to write that post? What exactly was it that we did together that you feel was so special? And, dug under the skin of that so that I really understood it, because what I want to do is do that for everybody and make sure that all of my clients feel that way, because that's fabulous.
Yeah.
And I think if we're not talking to our customers, taking the opportunities to get from them the information that we need to understand what we're delivering, we're missing out a real trick somewhere.
Yeah.
So the question I like to ask is, I know what I sold you,
yeah,
but what did you get?
Yeah, that's a great question.
And that gets some interesting answers.
Yeah. Well, and that's, I think, something that, William, people don't want to know the answer sometimes, right? They might not be sure of themselves. They might not be sure of their experience. So they're kind of afraid to ask the customer. And I think if you don't ask the customer, your competitor will. And eventually there's going to be some problems there. So, I'm just, do you think that a blind spot for us is that customer feedback, not getting enough feedback from our customer? Can we get too much? I mean, I can't imagine we could get too much feedback.
I think, well, there is a danger with getting feedback, especially if you seek it from a lot of people in a short space of time. Because you may get conflicting feedback, and then which do you believe?
Yeah.
So, customer A says, I really like the way you follow up on email. And customer B says, I really dislike the way you follow up on email. Well, what are you going to do with that? Yeah. So I think you've got to be careful about asking really good questions to get really good feedback. Be specific in the question about what you want the feedback on. The general stuff tends to be difficult to act on. And the other thing is to look for trends. What do people say consistently, time and again? So if you get 20 customers who say, I really love the way you respond on email and I like the style of your emails, and one customer says, I don't like the style of your emails, well, 20 to 1 is a pretty good ratio, right?
Sure.
So you'd probably ignore the 1 and focus on the 20. But if it was 10 and 10, well, then you got to think a bit about, well, maybe I need to, there's bits this group like about the way the language I use, the way I come across on email, and this group doesn't like it. Yeah. But maybe there's a middle ground where they'll all like it, and I just need to find that. So it's that kind of being careful about not just reacting to each piece of feedback. I don't like that, right, I'll change that. Or I do like that, so I'll keep that the same. And you've got to take it over a little bit of time and see what the consistencies and the trends are in what people are saying.
Sure. Well, and in building a better business, it's all focused on the customer. So that's where I think it's interesting, is the focus feels sometimes that entrepreneurs put it on their operations, put it on their process, put it on their profit, and they forget the main goal here is that individual customer. I mean, without that customer, you can have the best operations in the world. You can have the best, every system is working seamlessly, but without that customer, we're done. So yeah. You see entrepreneurs that you run into not stressing the customer's importance enough?
Oh, all the time, and I don't get it, frankly, because you're right. Without customers, we don't have a business. So to me, they are not one of a number of important things. They're not the only thing that's important, but they are really, really important. Yeah. And yeah, I think there's you touched on something earlier, Dave. You said that there was people not wanting to get feedback. And my experience is they don't want to get feedback when they know the feedback's not going to be great.
Right. Yeah. And
if you already know the feedback is not going to be great, why haven't you already done something about it?
Right. Wow. Well, hey, that reminds me of when I was a kid and I knew my grades weren't good and I had to give my report card to my parents. I knew the feedback wasn't going to be positive, right? But it was a little late at that point, so it's already done. But you know what? A kid doesn't think ahead like that as much as we as business owners. We need to be thinking ahead about what is this decision going to do to our future, So that totally makes sense that we need to be thinking more about that from the customer's perspective.
And we also need to think about where the customers are going, because they're not standing still either. And if you were you talked about a few brands in the US that have failed to do that, failed to move with where the customer is. Kodak is another example. Digital cameras came along and Kodak kind of went, oh, they won't last.
Yeah.
And look where we are today. So having an eye to what is happening in the market, what are other people doing, where is this market going, it's really, really important too. So you don't want to be, I don't think, for most businesses, you don't want to be left behind.
Right.
Also, if you want to be right at the front, that can be quite painful too. So trying to lead a market is something that I think, the best place, Apple have always done this. They've always been first to be second. So they weren't the first with a phone that connected to the internet, but the iPhone was the first one that really got mass appeal because they worked on making it deal with exactly what their consumers wanted. And they know their audience. They know their audience inside out, and they know where they're heading and taking the business all the time.
Yeah.
Well, they're not standing still.
Yeah. You bring up Kodak. I mean, Steve Sasson was the engineer that actually created that camera, and it was like the size of a toaster, right? And he walks into the boardroom and he says, hey, you guys, I've solved this. This is huge, right? And they said, hey, that's not the direction we're going. Don't tell anybody about that. Stay out of that. And a few years later, somebody else found it, and that was their demise. So I mean, that's a warning for us that, number one, listen to your team. Number two, listen to your customer, like you said. So when we come back, I want to unpack your B3 business audit, because I'm really interested to know what you have on your website there. So we'll be right back. Awesome. So on your website, there is a business audit, and I looked at the questions, and can you kind of run us through what that is and who that would be ideal for, William?
Yeah, sure. It's fairly quick to complete if you've had a look on the, just clicking a few stars and scoring on a number of questions. I think there's 20 questions in the audit, and it's looking at 5 areas of your business. So it looks, first of all, at things like signposting. How good are you at communicating what you do to your target audience, that your marketing, and so on. It looks at sales and what your sales process is like, and how well you're delivering a customer who comes, or a prospect who comes to you and is interested in buying what you do, your service or your product. How well are you managing them through the buying process? And then we look at the systems that you have in the business, and how well automated are you, and how well have you got the right systems in place to deliver great customer service. We spent some time earlier talking about the importance of good customer service. So that's covered there. And then we look at the skills in your business, and have you got the right skills in the business, in you as an individual, if it's just you in the business, or in the team if you've got a team. A business and you're not well, you can't run the business. So we need to look at physical well-being and so on.
So
those areas in a way that I've into. Sorry, Dave. I think we've got an internet glitch again, haven't we?
Yep. There, we're back. So we'll have Dana cut that out. So we'll start. Just start with. Excuse me. I had signposting, sales, systems, and skills. So let's start. Just start with the 5th one.
Let it catch itself up.
Yeah. Yep.
I think we're back to normal now. You're moving normally again.
Yep. So start with and then what's the last one?
Okay. So you've got the first 4.
Yep. Signposting, sales, systems, and skills.
Yeah. And so the last one is all about you, the individual self, the individual who's running the business, because if you're not well, you can't run a business well.
Sure.
So we look at things like mental awareness, your emotional awareness, your mental resilience, and your physical well-being. And the 20 questions are designed to look in each of those areas. I've developed them over a number of years, and the questions have been honed so that they dig under the skin a little bit.
Sure.
I produced a report of that. It's not an AI-produced report. In this day of AI, you know, we can have some of these things done very quickly by a computer. But I want to spend a little bit of time looking at your answers, and I look at some of the other data about whoever's filled it in. So if you've got a LinkedIn profile, I'll look you up and have a read of that as well, just to get a flavor for the business. And then you get an 8-page report that will look at each of those 5 areas and give you some advice on where you are right now and how to move. Looks at what's the thing you should do right, where should you focus, and all of those different things. Where should you? So if your sales is the weakest area, we'll give you some advice around how to improve that. If it's your your own physical health, there'll be some advice around who to do that. And I'll link you to resources, books, and so on that are relevant based on your answers, so that we give you the best targeted help we can.
And there's no cost to doing that, William?
There's no cost to doing that. I mean, we're all in business to be commercial. Obviously, sure. I'm hoping, and I know that it does happen. Happens often that people who fill in the survey, get the report, will then want to have a chat and to talk about how they can take that on. I'm very happy to do a half-hour chat as part of that, free of charge. But in that, if we want to carry on working together, then we'll talk about what arrangements that are, and I'd be delighted to work with any of your readers and help them build a better business.
Sure. Okay. Well, and I think that when I started looking at those,
you're gonna have to edit that bit as well, I think.
Yeah, when I started looking at the questions, I was like, it's got to be hard to be honest at some point, I'm guessing, right? I mean, I want to think it's better. I'm better than I am. Do you notice people struggling with being honest in those things at times? Yeah, unfortunately, this isn't working out here.
Sorry, Dave, I lost you again, I'm afraid.
Yeah. Yep. So,
yeah, no, it's been troublesome, isn't it?
Sorry. Well, Dana will capture all. We'll fix it on our end. Sorry about this. We're having some bad weather, so I think it must be on.
No, don't worry, Dave. It's
so. Is it hard to be?
It's one of those things that happens sometimes.
Yeah. Is it hard to be honest, William, when you're answering these questions at times?
Yeah, I think it is. And the scale that I'm asking people to rate themselves against is from truly awful, completely don't know anything about this, through to world-class, nobody is better.
Sure.
Now I'm a little bit skeptical that anybody is at either end of that scale.
Sure.
Completely at the end of that scale.
Yep.
So this is one of the things. Some stats I get from the back end of the system to the question and whether you changed your mind or not, and sure. that helps to drive an understanding of where you really are. So that's useful. But I'd encourage people not to, if they are going to do the audit, not to spend too much time fretting about, am I a 3 or a 4 star? Just go with your gut. Yeah. Take the first answer, and don't rattle through it. Give each question some thought, but really go with the first answer that springs to mind, because that's where you believe you are. And then you can see in the report, when you get the report, you say, does this really reflect how I think my business is? Sure. If so, great. If not, then maybe that's a signal that there's a bit of self-awareness that's missing, and you need to look a bit deeper.
Well, and I think that this is the outside influence of somebody taking a look at your golf swing, right? Or somebody critiquing your artwork, whatever it is. It's an outside look at that. So that's got to be huge for a good tool moving forward for an entrepreneur, correct? This is on my end.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's not. Yeah, it's not an answer. It's never going to give you that, but it is going to give you some insight into where to focus, and that's the point, really.
Gotcha. Awesome. Well, I'm just curious as we start to land today, what would your tip of the week be for somebody listening that is intrigued about what we've been talking about?
So I think the first thing is to reflect on how well or how badly you think your business is doing right now, and whichever way you feel, if you're feeling that it's really hard right now, sometimes it is going to feel hard. It's okay for it to be hard. It's part of running a business. If you think it's going really well right now, take advantage of that. Take some time to harness the good things that are happening and lock them in for the future. If it's really hard, take some time out if you can. Just take a step back for a day or two and allow yourself to relax and come back to the business with fresh eyes. And my experience is when things are really bad, they're not as bad as you think they are. And when they're really good, they're probably not as good as you think they are either. So there's somewhere in the middle. So take the opportunities when they arise to focus on putting the good things into the business and hanging on to them, and take the time to just relax from the difficult ones, and things will get better quickly.
Oh, that's awesome. If somebody's listening, William, and they want to learn more about your book, they want to look at that business audit, what's the best way for people to reach out and connect with you?
So I have an unusual name. My surname is Buist. It's spelled B-U-I-S-T. If you Google that, you probably find me. So that's okay. There are a few other Buists in the world, but you'll get to me fairly quickly. So William Buist, and williambuist.com is the website. Okay. And the audit, if you just put the word audit in front of that, so audit.williambuist.com, that'll take you to the audit.
Oh, wow.
And reach out, find me on LinkedIn, connect with me there. Very happy to have a conversation with any of your listeners, Dave, and see if together with what you're doing, with the positivity you bring and the growing on purpose that you're doing and the insights into mastery that I can bring them, together we should be an unstoppable force, really.
Right? If we can't, then forget it. I'm going to start taking pictures just like you. I love your photos on your website. I love that passion that you have for that. So again, as we close today, if you're listening, rather than jump into your next type of, your next task that you have to do, just take a minute and think about what we talked about, how to get from explorer to mastery. Think about the signposting and the sales and your systems and your skills and yourself. I mean, these are really powerful pieces that if we're able to work with them, we're going to be able to do what we started talking about at the beginning, which was building a better business. So if you don't learn anything, that's on you, because William gave you a bunch of great information today. He's offering some audit to help you, 30 minutes of his time. I mean, that's incredibly generous. Pick up a copy of Intentional Mastery. It's a great book. And thank you again, William, so much for jumping on today, and can't wait to keep learning from you.
It's a pleasure, Dave. And likewise, I think we have a lot to share. So thank you very much for all we've done together already.